Good evening everyone. Myself Ranganayaki from the Department of Computer Applications. Today we'll be discussing about the concept of file handling in Python programming language. We'll get into the concept now. Why we need the concept of file handling in a programming language? When we are performing any form of task or else when we are performing any form of operation or execution, the primary thing what we need is the data. So without the data we can't perform any form of task or else we can't get any form of solution for a problem. So if you want to get a solution for a particular problem, the main thing what we need is the data. With the help of the data, we can do certain operations and processes. At the end of the process, we will be getting a solution. And by the solution, we can identify a solution to the existing problem also. So that is how we will be processing all our data and we will be identifying a solution to the problem. So now, to perform that kind of operations or to perform any form of task, first we have to store our data into a memory storage device. So for that particular thing we need the file handling methodology, file handling operations. So we'll be getting into the concept of file handling in detail in the upcoming slides. So the main thing is file handling is going to be used for storing our data which is going to be processed to receive any form of solution into a memory storage. Not only in a temporary storage, instead of storing it into a temporary storage, we will be storing it into the permanent storage. So coming to the types of files, we have two broad categories of files. One is the text files, another one is the binary files. As the name implies, we can understand that text files are going to contain only the textual information. That form of files can be of certain types like text document, CSV file and etc. And coming to the second form of file, we have binary files. Binary file will be having information other than the textual information. We can easily say that it will be containing of non-textual information. For example, images, audio files and other form of data like binary information also. As we discuss about binary information, as we all know, binary information is going to be zeros and ones. So it is a language which is understood by a machine. So it is a machine language which can be further processed to identify a solution to a problem. So these are the two broad categories of the files in Python programming language. So the very first one is text file, another one is the binary file. And next we will be discussing about the functions what we have in the Python programming language file handling concept. So the very first and the primary functions are open and close method. Either we can say it as a function or else we can call it as methods also. The very first one is the open and close method. So if you want to process any form of file, the very first thing what we have to do is we have to open that file. If it is already not been created, the first step should be the creation of file. Opening comes in stage where the file has been already created, it has been stored somewhere in the memory, so that we are just going to open the file. So these are the two important methods, or else we can say the primary methods of file handling concept. The very first one is the open method, next is the close method. So if you want to process any form of file, the first thing what we have to do is we have to open that file. So for opening the file, we have an inbuilt method called open. In this slide itself, we could able to see the syntax for open function. You have to start with the keyword open and we have two primary parameters. One is the file name. You have to mention the file name with the proper extension. That is, if it is going to be the text document, you have to mention the file name with the .txt extension. Same as applies to the other form or other formats of files also. And next one is in what mode we are going to open that file. So some common modes are R for reading, W for write, A for append and X to create. So modes what we are using for the open function. And we have other functions and other modes of documents also. Next one is Once you have opened the file, the next thing what we are going to do is we have to perform whatever the operation we are aiming to perform in that particular file. So once we are opening a file, obviously we'll be having some sort of operation or some sort of work in that file. Unless and until we doesn't have any work in that file, we won't be opening that file. Once all the process whatever we are aiming it has been completed, then we can close the file, because our data has to be in a safe manner. So once we have completed all sort of work or all sort of operations in that file, we can just close the file, so that the resources whatever allocated to that particular file can also be released. The main purpose of close function is releasing the resources so that we can save the changes to the disk file. So this is what the main purpose of close function. So the close function can be given as the file parameter, that is a file object, dot operator, and the close function can be called. So once the close function has been called, all the resources allocated to that file has been released and also the file will be closed. So if you want to work on that file again, then we have to again start from the beginning. That is, we have to again open the file, we have to do the process, and we have to close it. So next sort of methods are the read, read line, and read lines. So we have two primary operations in files. One is read and another one is write. So for reading files, we have three different functions: read, read line, and read lines. So what read function is going to do is, if you are going to call the read method with the help of your file object, it will read the entire content whatever present in that particular file as a string parameter. Read line is going to do, it will be reading each and every line one by one, that is one line at a time from the file. So anyway, it is going to read the entire document, but not as a read function, but in read line, each and every line will be read one by one, that is one line at a time. Next one is read lines. This is also going to do the same process. It will be reading all the lines from the document to whatever you are presenting to it, but all the lines are going to be read and it is going to be presented to you as an output in the form of a list. So the differences are very distinct and it's very clear. So I hope the differences are clear. Next we'll be moving on to the next operation, which is writing, and also we have one more operation which is appending. So we have write function for writing a data. So write is nothing but we are going to add some content to that particular file. If this is the first time you are adding some form of data to that file, then you have to you can use the write function, which writes the data and also overwrites the existing content. So we can use the mode W to overwrite or replace the file contents which is already present in the existing file. And next one is the appending. So appending is also going to use the same form of operation, but it will be adding the new content to the existing file. That is, the existing content will also be there. No form of overwriting will be done, but only the new content will be appended. That is, it will be merged into the previous content, existing content which is already present in the file. So try to understand the difference between both the function. For writing and also for appending, we are going to use the write method only, but the modes are different. If you are going to use the write operation, that if you want to overwrite something, if you want to replace something in the existing file, you can go for the write method with the W mode. But if you want to add or if you want to append, you want to merge something to the existing data, only the additional data is going to be added to the existing data. So that is how the appending will be working. We are going to use the same write method for the appending of data also, but with the mode called A. Next one is with statement. So if we want to manage the resources allocated to a particular file, if you are working with any sort of file, any form of file, it will be having some connections to the resources, it will be using some resources for its own operation. So if you want to ensure that resources are properly released from that particular activity, then you have to use the with statement in our program. So with the help of the with statement, it automatically closes the file after execution, even though there is going to be any form of error. It doesn't stop for that. If there is going to be any form of error, it doesn't consider, it just closes the file after the execution, and it just guarantees and ensures that all the resources allocated to that particular file has been released properly. So the keyword is going to be used is with open, the document what we are, the file what we are going to be used, and you can see that here the mode what we used is R. So we are just going to read the document alone. So as you are going to mention the object file object name, so finally it is going to be just we are calling the read function. Okay, so the entire document will be read, and finally the document will be closed properly, and all the resources allocated to the file will be gets released. Next one is file pointer and binary operations. We have a tell method first, which always returns the current position of the pointer. Pointer is nothing but if you are going to do any sort of operation, that is reading or writing, whatever, appending, whatever it might be, with the help of the pointer only we can do that at what position we are going to add some data, or else from what position we are going to read the data, from what position we are going to write the data to the file. All these things will be decided depending on the file pointer. That is, it's like a cursor. Okay, while we are working in a Word document, you could easily able to see that that will be a file pointer there. With the help of that line, blinking line, you could be able to that file pointer, you could be able to understand at what point you are typing the content. If you want to go somewhere else and type in between of an existing content also, you need that file pointer. Without the file pointer we can't do that. So editing the document is also not possible without the file pointer. So that is what the tell method is. So it just returns the current position of the pointer where the file pointer is present in your document. Next one is seek. So the seek method moves that particular pointer to a specified position. That is what I have said earlier. So if you want to, you have already typed a document, you have already created a document. Now you want to add some content to the in between of the document, in between of two lines. Just imagine. Only if and only if you know the current position of the line, you can place the current cursor, to the current position, then you can type some content to the between lines, in between lines. So that is how the seek, tell and seek both will be worked. One is binary mode. If you want to open a file in a binary mode, or else if you want to open a file which is already in the binary mode, you can just use the B, it's a mode called B. With the help of that B mode, you can open a file in the binary mode. So that is how the write and read also work. So if you are going to work in text files, you can simply use the W mode for write and R mode for read. So if you are going to use, you are going to perform any task or any operation in a binary file, then you have to go to the WB mode for write and RB mode for reading the document. Next one is exception handling and OS operation. So exception handling is nothing but if something unexpected is going to be happening in between the execution. We can't always expect a normal successful execution in any form of task. There might be some form of unexpected things will be happening. To handle those, to handle such unexpected situation, we need an exception handling methodology. So you have to use two things. One is the try. Whatever the operation you are going to perform, you have to just mention inside that try block and expect what type of error can be occurring, what kind of error you are expecting, that can be mentioned in that expect. So see here, I am just opening a text document in the read mode, and I am just calling the read function with the file object name. And next one is what I am expecting that might be happen is file not found error can happen. So if that is going to happen, I am just instructing my system, instructing my program to just give a error message that file not found. And in the finally block, I am just giving the file that is the f is nothing but the object, file object what I have created. So f dot close has been called. So whether the try executes or as a expect executes, the whatever I am giving inside the finally block, once all the statements has been executed, at the end of the program execution, whatever I have or whatever we have given inside the finally block will get executed. So that's why I am giving the close function inside the finally block, because as we discussed earlier, once we have done with the program execution, we have to release all the resources held by the which has been allotted to the file properly. Then only it can be used by some other programs. And coming to the file management, we have two more important methods, which is rename and remove. So if you want to rename any file name, you can just use the method called rename. OSS, we are just interacting with our operating system. We have to import that package, which is OS is a built-in package which is present in the Python programming language. So we have to import that particular operating system OS package into our program, and the rename and remove function can be used. While you are using the rename function, you have to pass two parameters. One is the old file name, what is the previous name of the file, and what is the new name you are going to give to the file. So text document with the name old will be renamed with the new name new. Next one is os.remove. I am just going to remove. We can also say it as delete. So I am going to just remove that particular file from the memory permanently. That is how the remove function will be working. So remove will be having only one parameter, that is the file name has to be passed with the proper extension. That is how the remove function will be, remove method will be working. So this is all about the exception handling and the remove and rename operation. I hope the concepts were clear to you. Thank you so much for watching.